Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for October's Take and Make craft. This month we're going to be making a spiderweb wall decor. So for those of you that have picked up our craft kit, included in that craft kit is going to be a little bit of paint, a wood embroidery hoop, a sponge brush, a little bit of gray yarn, and a couple of sparkly black pipe cleaners. You will need to provide at home a pair of scissors and some tape. Now, the first step in this craft, move some of this stuff out of the way here, is to separate the two sections of your embroidery hoop and paint them black. So this step might take a little bit longer. You might only be able to do one side at a time. And obviously you have to wait to let it dry, but you're just going to dip a little bit into that paint there and then spread it carefully on your embroidery hoop. Just make sure that you want to cover it completely, but you don't want to have lumps and bumps on there because you're going to have to put these back together in order to complete the craft. Okay, so I'm not going to have you watch me do this whole thing, but what you might want to do right now, if you're following along with the video, is just pause the video, finish painting your hoop, and then once it is completely dry, start the video up again and I will show you the next step in this craft. Once you have completely painted both the inner and outer section of your embroidery hoop, the next step is going to be to make the web. So we're going to set aside the outer section of the hoop for now. We're going to be working with the inner section right here. I've already pre-cut a few pieces of yarn, but you're going to need a total of 4 pieces of yarn to fit across the entire hoop in various directions. And you're going to use tape to secure it. I just have Scotch tape here, but really any kind of tape that you can either cut or tear into small sections is fine. So you're going to take one end of the yarn right here and tape it to the outer section of the inner hoop. And then you're going to take the other end of that yarn and you're going to tape it to the outer section of the inner hoop on the other side, directly opposite. And you want to stretch it enough that it's going to be nice and taut, but not so tight that you pull the other section off. So you're going to do that with 4 pieces of yarn. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go across in one direction and then go directly perpendicular to that to make this as even as possible between the sections of yarn for this web. Okay, so you've got 2 of them. For the third one, you want to find a spot that's about halfway between these 2 sections of yarn here. We'll tape that one there, and then again directly across to the other side of the hoop and taping it to the outside. Okay, and I actually made that section of tape a little bit too long. I'm just going to carefully cut that so I don't have too much hanging out the back here. Last section of yarn for this step. So again, about halfway through, or halfway between rather, these 2 sections of yarn right here, tape it to the outside and do the same thing on the other side. So that's the first step in doing the web. The next thing that you're going to do is just cut a small section of yarn. And we're going to tie a tiny knot around the spot where all 4 of these pieces of yarn meet to hold them together. So I'm just going to do a double knot here. You don't want to make it too lumpy, but you want to make sure that it's going to be secure. So 2 knots, and then you can just trim off a little bit of that extra yarn from that knot. Okay. And then from there, you're going to take a longer section of yarn right here, and you're going to do the circle around here. Now, if you have other ideas for how you want this web to look, you can certainly do that. It is up to you, but I'm gonna follow the instructions I saw for this original craft. So the inner, oh, actually, you know what? Probably not be a bad idea since you're gonna be pulling on the yarn here. What we're actually gonna do now is put the outer section of this embroidery hoop back on, because that's going to ultimately be what really secures your yarn in place. So you're going to place it over here, and then tighten the outer corner, the outer section of your embroidery hoop. Oh, actually, you know what I realized here? Don't make my mistake. I actually placed it in a way that it's not going to properly secure that top piece of yarn right there. Did not realize when I put it on. So it might not be a bad idea to set it up so that the every section of yarn here at the inner hoop is going to be covered by the outer hoop, because again, more so than the tape, that's what's going to secure your yarn in place. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're making it as tight as you can get it so that yarn doesn't go anywhere. Okay, so I think that should do it. We'll see. We'll see what happens once I actually start tying the rest of my knots here. Okay, so you tie your 1 knot right here. And then you want to have enough to go sort of around a circle here. So make sure you leave yourself a little bit extra. But then you're going to cut that section, and you're going to go from that first spot where you tied a knot to the next piece of yarn, that next line there, roughly the same distance away from the middle as where you tied that first knot. Okay, so again, you want to make it tight but not too tight. You want it to be a straight line between your knots, but you don't want it to sag. And you don't want to start pulling so hard that you pull the rest of the yarn out. Again, this should hold pretty well. That could probably be a little bit tighter. Let's see. There we go. And we're going to do this on this particular embroidery hoop. I'm going to go around 3 times, so there's going to be 3 circular sections. But again, depending on how you want your spider web to look when you're done, you can kind of experiment with that. Okay, see, you know what? These are actually a little bit too loose, and I don't like where I've tied it. So I'm gonna undo that one. In fact, I think this might actually even work better if you flip it over so you're working on the back, because then where your knot is, it's not going to show in the front. It might look a little bit better. Okay. There we go. So again, for each of these individual sort of spokes, I guess you could call them, each of the straight lines in your spider web, you're just doing just a single knot. Tight enough that it doesn't sag, not so tight that you end up pulling more yarn out of the hoop here. Okay, and then for this one, I'm going to wrap that piece of yarn behind this piece right here, and then I'm going to bring it back around the front and tie it to the end of the original knot. Okay, and then once I've done that, I'm going to tie a second knot just to make sure that it's secure here and it's not going to be slipping around. All right, and once I've done that, I'm going to take my scissors and cut these long ends here. I'm going to leave just a tiny bit. I'm not going to cut it right up against the knot, but enough that it's not really going to show. Okay, once I flip it around. Okay, so then we're going to do the second section right here. So once again, you're going to tie a knot maybe about 2/3 of the way between the center of the circle. Well, maybe, you know what? Not even. This one's probably going to be about halfway. About halfway between your center knot and the outside. So I'm going to tie that knot right there. And then, again, just sort of get a sense of how much yarn you're going to need. Allow a little bit of extra. All right, so we're going to do the same thing here. Go all the way around and tie your knot about halfway between the center of the hoop and the outer section of the hoop. Make sure these sections are tight enough not to sag, but not so tight that you're pulling too hard on the yarn. Okay, halfway there. Okay, and last knot for this one, again, what you want to do is take this end, wrap it around. From this point of view, it's the back side of this, but really it's going to be, you're going to wrap it around what's going to be the front side of the final project. And then tie one knot right here. Make sure that you've got the amount of tension that you want for this. Don't squeeze it, or rather don't pull it too tight. And once you've got that how you want it, tie a second knot. And then again, you're going to take your scissors and cut the excess yarn from that knot. Okay, so now we're on to our last sort of trip around the spider web here. So this one is going to go about halfway between this piece of yarn and the outside of your spider web here, the embroidery hoop. So again, tie your knot nice and tight, and you're going to work your way around the outside of the spider web, tying your knots at each section. Okay, and if anyone out there is doing a different pattern for the spider web, if you are getting fancy with it, I'd love to see what you did. Or even if you're following this exactly, feel free to share photos of your final project, particularly if you're following us on Facebook. You can respond to the post of this video. Or you can just post it and feel free to tag us in it. We are P-Berg Library on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'd love to see what your spider webs look like. All right, halfway done with this one. Almost done with the web. We just have one more knot. So again, wrap that last piece to what is, from your point of view, the back of the spider web, but for the finished product, it's going to be around the front. Tie one knot, make sure that tension here is how you want it. Tie a second knot nice and tight. And then cut off the excess here. Okay, so that's the spider web itself. The spider web is done, but now this spider web needs an inhabitant. We need to make a little spider for it. So we're going to set this aside for now. You should have 2 sparkly black pipe cleaners in your kit. So what you want to do is cut them into about a third. So I'm just going to bend it here just to kind of make sure that I've got, each section is going to be about a third of that pipe cleaner. And then I'm going to cut. Okay, and same thing with the second pipe cleaner. That one I think I underestimated a little bit. There we go. So cut where those bends are. You're actually only going to need 5 of these pieces. So you can set the extra one aside. All right, so then what you're going to do with each of these is bend them into sort of an M shape. All right, so I should say with 4 of them, these are going to be your spider's legs. All right, so he's got 4 legs now. There's legs 5 and 6. And legs 7 and 8. So then you can kind of stack them on top of one another and take your last piece of pipe cleaner and you're going to wrap it around the middle section of that M shape in your pipe cleaners in order to make your spider's body. Oh, I forget which way that one was going. There we go. All right, so once you've made your spider's body, you're going to spread out each of his 8 little legs here. Of course, figuring out which order they're supposed to go in is a little bit tricky. They're a little tangled here. There we go. All right, so once you've made your spider, you're going to put them on the web. I'm going to shake off some of the extra spider hairs that fell on there from those pipe cleaners. Okay, so here's the front of your web. You can really put it wherever you want, but you're just going to kind of hook one or more of his legs around the part of the spider web where you want him to be. Okay. And there you have it. You have a cute little spider web wall decor complete with a sparkly black spider to live on it. Thank you so much for joining us for this month's Take and Make craft. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. I would love again to see how your project turned out, so feel free to leave a photo in the comments or tag us in social media. Again, we are Peaburg Library on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And we will be announcing our November Take and Make craft soon, so keep an eye out for that. I hope you'll join us for that next month. In the meantime, I hope you have a great rest of your October, and we hope to see you again for November's Take and Make craft. Bye.